welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mpolukeng Nematei, and I just want to welcome those who are here for the first time and those who are returning. Thank you guys for your constant support. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like, share and comment. I really need your comments. Today guys, I'm with somebody I know. He's not really my friend, but somebody I know who's very much opinionated. Can you please introduce yourself to the people?
Well, I'm Ndibulele. Yes, I'm Ndibulele from Malahleni at the moment. I'm a former student activist, but at the moment I'm more into other things. No longer into student politics though, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ndibulele, for creating my channel. I really appreciate it. Okay, today guys, we're going to talk about what has been happening around in the country. We've seen a lot happen. We've seen a lot of looting that happens, and I thought, why not have a word? Everybody, like, the good thing about being in this country is that all of us are afforded the right to speech, to say whatever we see, but I'm definitely assuring you that we're not going to insult anyone, but we're just going to say our views. And Ndibulele, for the past week, last week, there has been a lot of lootings and a lot of unrest, especially in big cities, because Durban and Gauteng, it's big cities. I want to believe they even generate more towards the economy of the country. So yes, that unrest, man, has been a lot, which made me think, because most of the people who were looting, it's black people. Yes, we cannot shy away that there were other races, but majority, it was us. And when you listen to the news, reading newspapers, we are always told that we are underprivileged, and yet we still go on and underprivilege ourselves and take more and more to things that are gonna build us as a black community. Remember, those shops that were looted, most employees are South African black employees, even though those companies, most of them are owned by other races. So I want us to talk about us black people in this matter. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? Yeah, just a little bit.
The first thing that I would look at as an African person is that what actually does those businesses around me mean to me? Their tangible value. What is it exactly that they mean, and what is it am I getting out of them being looted and whatnot? And yeah, these are simple economics, if you catch my drift. For instance, yes, number one, looting is wrong. That we can all agree on. Yeah. Secondly, its economic value. Who's working there? What are they doing for me? In most occasions, you'd find that I don't think at the crux of looting there's poverty in it. I think there's more of a criminal element, because poverty is not new. Poverty has been there. We have made better choices before. Yeah. And so I don't think poverty should be taken as a straw man in this.
As a reason,
yes,
for the looting.
In the economic basket, because at the end of the day, one, if we loot, we destroy our very own economy. Yes. But then there's something also that's very important, the meaning of that economy to us. For instance, things that you don't see value in are things that you are more likely to destroy. Because besides the shops that were looted, we also saw libraries and clinics and whatnot being burnt, which then gives rise to a question, what are they doing for us? Are they correctly serving us? Do we see any value in them? How do we perceive them? What's our perception of the infrastructure around us, especially as Africans? It turns out that most of the people that do the looting and destroy those things are people who do not place much value in those things, or are people who are venting out their frustration in all the wrong ways, which brings us back to our values. Mostly the family unit, if I may say. First and foremost, in in a family, there's a hierarchical structure.
Yes.
There's mostly someone who's in charge of the family, be it the father, the mother, and then their children, and whatever that makes that family at that particular point in time function.
Yeah.
Now, what you see manifesting in South Africa is the dysfunctionality that not only that is only seen outside the spectrum of family values, but it begins there. It's at the crux of our family.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, is that number one, we need more socialized families. Remember, we are from a past where fathers were sent to the mines. They were leper-sending areas like your former Transkei, Kwandebele, and other homelands. So the family structure was sort of kind of destroyed or was left
dysfunctional.
Yes, it was very much dysfunctional in that regard. So I think as a country, we've got that in most occasions, mostly to fix your family structure, and that's going to add value in other things. So when we for instance, if you have a male figure in the house, let's say a father tells his children that, this year we are going to do farming. This is why we do farming. We're going to plant our maize and we're going to get most of our food from there. And this is how it's going to help our family. And as a family leader, you lead by an example. Then you get this brand of kids who grow up knowing a sense of responsibility and why things are done. Thus, in turn, if you know why you need to work your fields, then you get a better reason to even work those fields. Whereas the sense of purpose is somewhat distorted in South Africa because you've got this government that promises everything free. You've got free houses, you've got free Medicare, you've got free education, you've got these overbearing rights to everyone who understands that it's my right to do this without thinking twice about the responsibility. Now, linking that to our to how in most occasions we are going to have this family structure that's somewhat dysfunctional, to the frustration of these people who are from these dysfunctional families. Projecting their stresses onto public infrastructure or public platforms in a wrong way because mostly they lack leadership, they lack the most necessities that would bring rise to what I would call the ideal adults to run or be good citizens.
I hear you. So you are saying, I think that can be true, hey? You're saying for as long as our families are dysfunctional, therefore it's going to even be difficult for the government to make us function as a country.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And not only that, remember, the family is one of the primary building blocks of a society. Therefore, if we want to build functional and better societies, then we must have a semblance of functional family units. For instance, I think it's Bhutan, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the countries in Asia where they calculate.
Say the name of the country.
Bhutan. I think it's Bhutan.
Okay.
Or Nepal. One of those countries, though. It's in Asia, Central Asia, between India and China.
Yes.
They have something called the happiness index, where they calculate how happy the people in the country are.
Oh wow!
Now, it's not one of the richest countries in the world, but it's one of the most positive countries in the world in terms of the atmosphere, their attitudes, the way they perceive life. They are one of the very few carbon positive countries. Wow. And if you look at how the people are in that country, family is emphasized, family values are emphasized.
Yes.
And the preservation of nature is also emphasized. Now, I'm bringing that in because, so we're saying to avoid looting, it is embedded in how we raise our families, in how we provide leadership in those families. So that means the function of the state must be to provide social programs that will socialize our families or our young people to build better families to prevent the criminal elements that are the aftermath of destroyed families. So if we are capable to then say, our families, we are on a project of building functional families, then we are going to be able to produce families with leadership. If we are capable of producing that, then we are going to avert most of the criminal elements that we saw during the looting spree that happened in our country. Now, one may argue that, but we cannot say those people were raised in dysfunctional families and whatnot, because those are just poor people. Exactly my point. Because if we are going to advocate that those are poor people and whatnot, without looking at the crux or the most crucial element of their family life, then we are going to blame them for a range of things. Where does poverty come from? From not having money? From how do we define the element of poverty? Having less than others, in what way? Because you do have families who have less, who are actually happy, who have a fulfilling family life.
They're not criminals.
And they're not criminals. And but at the end of the day, having less than most does give rise to stress, does give most probably young men reason to do things that otherwise they would not do had they been in better economic conditions. But certainly it's an individual's choice to go out and destroy what does not belong to them, regardless of the mood in the country.
I sorry to interject. I think as well as Black people, we lack a sense of responsibility and a sense of accountability. We just do things because we feel entitled. This brings me to the post that I read from Dr. Tulima Donzela, where he said, Black people, we feel entitled. We always want to blame racism. And even in families, I've checked it with our immediate families. There will be a family that is well educated and they decided as a family, Tina, we're going to go to school, get educated and try to live a better life. Then those who don't live the better life will somehow make us feel like it is wrong for us for not helping them. Whereas we all have a sense of responsibility to you. It is our responsibility as a family to go out there and find better life for ourselves. And he's comparing with other nations that we are not the only Black race that was oppressed.
Yes.
You have your Indians that came to South Africa not because they didn't want to come to South Africa. They came because they needed to work at the sugarcane field, because black people at that time were even lazy to even work in those fields. You have your Africans who were racially discriminated by the whites, by the Englishmen, but they still managed to rise up. And to this day, I've never had an Indian person saying, yeah, we are suffering, we are frustrated because as a race, we have been going through this. But it is forever us Black people who are going to blame apartheid, who are going to blame racism, that we are not getting enough positions, we're not getting all these important positions. So can we dwell in that? We need to be accountable and be responsible as Black people. We cannot always, I'm not talking from the point of privilege because I'm able to do other things, but I'm also one of the people who was born in South Africa but grew up in a foreign country, which is Lesotho. But I managed to come back. You know, if I'm to tell you, kids in Lesotho, seeing the privilege that South African young people have here, they wish they could be born here and they would do much better. Yeah.
You know, I'm inclined to agree with you on many points, but at the same time, we must acknowledge that racism does exist, but we must also acknowledge that I don't believe it exists to the extent that most African people are pointing it out to be. At some point, there was an article that came out which was speaking to FNB how they've been charging Black people more interest
on mortgage.
Yes, on mortgage than their white counterparts or their counterparts of color.
Yes.
That is institutional racism. That is very difficult to combat because it needs people who understand that level of racism, which the greater majority of Africans, I'm afraid, does not. You see, so if we first acknowledgement that I'm going to have. But besides that, the people that were looting are not, I would like to say they do not qualify for that kind of racism.
But they do
They're
qualify
not
for
in
free
that-
housing.
they are
And
not in
most
that,
of them are staying in free houses.
Yes, yes, they do, but they do stay in free housing, and the state does assure that many people will get those free houses, which in my opinion, I believe is one of the problems that the state has. The state does not have policies that are progressive to an extent. They do not challenge the greater majority of their populations to do better.
Yeah.
Number one, I was born in the 90s in the former homeland of Transkei.
Yeah.
So the leadership was, your postmaster was an African, your school principal was an African, your church leaders were African, and we hardly saw any white people.
Or any other race.
Yes, it was mostly Africans doing things for Africans, and there was leadership in the community, even though our fathers were absent in the because they had to work in the mines. Yes, and that tradition has continued even 26 years later after democracy. Yes, they still migrate to the mines to work, and then December they do the same thing. But coming back to the point of the lack of policies that encourage young men in this country to participate in events, in life-changing events, number one, if you are going to offer me a free house, you are going to offer me free education, you are going to offer me free grants, it's essentially a welfare state. I appreciate all those things, but they do not incentivize me to go and find meaningful work, because I believe that if you can offer me these things, there is mostly more where that came from. But then you're not going to get that mentality of someone saying there's more where they came from. But subconsciously, there's going to be that little thing that says, if they can offer me this, and there's so much corruption being spoken of, so there is money, and I'm entitled to that money as much as the next person who is being corrupt is entitled to that money. Of which that's not the true sense of events. People need to find.
We need to stop lying to ourselves.
Yes, need to find meaning in getting things for themselves. So that means the state policies that have essentially turned the country into a welfare state need to change on a practical basis. Practically, that means instead of giving people something free, give them livelihoods. Do not just give them give them livelihoods. Make me be able to work as a man and have pride in what I do. Instead of advocating for my rights more than you do for my responsibilities, how about you teach me responsibility at school, and then I'll understand my rights? Because what you find with South Africans, what gives them the sense of entitlement is the overbearing rights that they have. I have a right to this, I have a right to that too. And all those rights accumulate to one thing: lazy people who feel over entitled.
Yes.
You also spoke on the issue of race, black people and race. We spoke about that article that came out. But what I found being at university was that most young black people, though they did not experience the full wrath of apartheid, they are suffering from what I would call inferiority complex. I'm not an expert in this.
It's just your
complex thing, but I think my opinion of what I would call an inferiority complex is attributing superiority to the white skin color as if it's more intelligent, or as if it's more validated than your skin color, which has got more melanin, and that translates into how you perceive white people. So that means even though you may have a brilliant argument, but when a white person speaks, it's sort of, that's what has got to be done, even though you feel it's totally wrong and shouldn't be done. And that's what I would attribute to inferiority.
Can I shoot in a little bit? I think that it's also being enhanced by us black people, because working myself, I do get a chance to sit in boardrooms and have meetings. Most of the time, as a black person, I don't even want to mention as a woman, as a black person, when you say a certain point, your fellow black people don't even take it serious. But the very same point being made by a fellow white or another race counterpart, they now started to listen, like, yeah, he could have a point. But he said exactly the same thing that you said. It's just that maybe the articulation might not be the same, but he would have said what you were saying, and they don't take you serious. But that this still brings me back when I am my brother to the point Yoguti, this racist thing. I think we want to own it to the level that we don't even want to see each other. How powerful we are as people, as black people. There's a brain inside of us that works, but we don't want to believe that. As long as the white person cannot, it is sorry to say this. I think I'm diverting, but then I need to say this. It also brings us to the thing of for as long as something is not said by a white person, if like black people are waiting for a white man to say, no, you guys are intelligent, that's when we're gonna start to feel worthy.
Yeah.
We understand.
Yeah.
We need to feel it. Okay, I'm one of those people. I don't care about what a black white person has to say to me. I'm not even looking for their approval, but we cannot shy away that there are people who are looking for their approval.
We actively seek that
yes.
approval. Yes. I've got to agree with you there on some of the things that you are saying that are quite valid. I remember this argument that as students we had we had white lecturers and African lecturers. So it so happened that when the students weren't getting their way, especially with white lecturers, they would scream out, "Aye, that's because they are racist." And when you get to listen to the conversation as to what exactly do you want from the lecturer and what did the lecturer say, you would find that it was a matter of the student not getting their way with what they wanted from the lecturer and not necessarily that the lecturer was racist. And I must say, for the duration of my stay at the university, I never really experienced any racism. But what I did experience was that predominantly black lecturers do things differently from white lecturers, and that does not compromise the quality of their lecturing. It's just that we are different people. We are diverse people. We're from different backgrounds. So, and our perceptions are different. So our delivery in terms of be it talking or be it doing things, it is going to be different.
Yes.
Now, coming back to the validation by white people of black men, we grew up in this generation where history does not teach black victories, but it teaches black conquest. We are exposed to adults who tell us about the white military prowess and the defeat of black people. So I'm not saying this as a matter of being true. This is my outlook on how this inferiority complex is embedded in us. So it is true that whites won overwhelming military victories over black people, but also it is true that black people defended their own, most of them, to the very end, like from the frontier wars of the Eastern Cape to the battles of Isandlwana, Black River, and whatnot in KwaZulu-Natal, to the Ndebele battles here in Mpumalanga, to other battles in Limpopo. So black people went gone out of defeat. And that is not the part that black people are taught. So black people are taught this victimhood, where even the history tells them that you are a defeated people.
So it's only the mind.
Yes. So I'm saying victimhood, in as much as we would say, black people have a sense of victimhood. It is true. We do have a sense of victimhood in us. That's a fact. We do. And yes, I'm sure in your comments, people will beg to differ and they will come with very strong points.
Yeah.
That's most welcome. It's one of the freedoms of being South African, and we celebrate that. But when at the point where we accept where we accept that we do have problems, that's the only time we can start dealing with the reality of those problems. Yeah. For instance, I'm not saying history must be changed to make black people victors, but I'm saying history must represent the true identity of the black person. We are not born out of victimhood. We defended our own. They had superior weaponry. they won. They came with religion, we assimilated. So long as we do not have the definition of what it is to be black outside the definition of the white man, then we are still going to suffer endless inferiority complexes. For as long as you and I cannot converse in vernac and think that we are having a powerful argument, we are still going to look at a white person as the epitome of our conversations, or as the epitome of intelligence. And we're never going to look at ourselves as equal to white people if we do not look at ourselves and see ourselves as equals, even in their absence, because that's important.
Yeah.
If you cannot, even if we are going to say white people are superior, even in their absence, when there's only the two of us in the conversation and we still consider them superior, then our problem is more psychological than we could ever possibly think.
Yeah.
We spoke of Afrikaners making it out of the shackles of the English, and we spoke of Indians who were, I would say, indentured servants who were to work in the sugar canes, and we spoke. I didn't think we mentioned the suffering of the mostly colored population from the half of the Eastern Cape to the Western Cape.
Yeah.
You know, all races in South Africa have had their fair share of suffering.
Yes.
Even the whites themselves, we must admit, even though the black people bore the brunt of the hatred of the races that were considered to be superior, even the ranking was that the black man was at the bottom of everything. But now this is no longer the case. The problem that we are having now is accepting that this is no longer the case and demanding. We must demand from black people, especially black men, that they play their role.
Yes.
And they become prominent members of the society, and we should demand accountability. Yes, black men must come to the forefront, and they must account for their manhood. They must account for being men. They must be held accountable, regardless of their economic standing. And I know this is going to sound harsh, because they're going to say, no, he's speaking from a position of privilege. I'm an unemployed young South African who's a father of two, and I would love to account whenever I am called upon for my children, for who I am, for my society, for providing leadership where I can. Black people need to step up and account. And lack of accountability has led to things like looting and whatnot, because if people do not account to anyone or any authority, you're going to see things like this happening. So,
and to tell the truth, it was mostly black men.
Yes, it is. It is true. Yes, I am not. I live in a black society.
We love our black brothers.
Yes, I live in a black society.
But at some point, the truth must be said.
Yes, and I'm not going to be able to speak about Indians or coloreds or white people, because I live amongst black people, and it is a fact that I celebrate. But the lack of accountability is high. Black people need to account firstly to themselves for what they do and for what they contribute and for their lack of contribution. Because let's speak economics, for instance, the ones that you understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to use a few surnames. Kumalo owns a spaza shop.
Yeah.
Dlamini is a shoemaker, and Mams Kosana is a dressmaker. Yeah. And Mams Bia is in catering. Ne? I don't see the reason why I should travel from Elokshini and go to the suburb to look for the best caterer there is, just going after the name, when we can support each other. When my shoes have a problem, Babs Bia corner, when I need a dressmaker, Umam Kumal corner, when, things like that. It's understanding those little things around black economy that will make us stronger. The fact that our money can circulate amongst us. Go to your neighbor if they have a spaza shop. Buy from them.
Yeah.
Go to your neighbor's daughter. Ask them to fix your computer if they did IT. Go to, utilize the black skill that's available within your vicinity. And black people need to change this work-orientated mentality that, I need to be employed.
Yeah.
And start
Can we
contributing.
Move away from
yes, the mentality that I need to be employed instead of doing what you can. For instance, I'm in IT, so finances are scarce. So what I do is I do freelance websites. Whenever someone wants a website, we negotiate. come up with a price that's agreeable to both of us, and I provide that service.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and it's not easy.
And you are perfecting your skills as well.
Yes, you learn. It's a trade. It's something that you got to do. If you can do beadwork, people are getting married here and then. They want traditional outfits. There's nothing too low as a person that you can do, which will earn you money. And if you move from the employment mentality to a mentality that says, I want to survive, I want to make it against all odds, and I'm going to try and be as honest as possible in whatever I do, then you are not going to form part of the looting group, but you're going to form the wider part of a stable society, where you are going to turn from being on an employment queue to being a leader in that space that you have created on your own. So Black people need to move away from I want a job, to actually exploit what they have.
Yeah.
Because Black people, believe me, they are intelligent.
We are intelligent. Black person, you are intelligent. There's so much that God has gifted you. So you can do so much. So you can
So
you need to emphasize that.
In that looting spree, you saw so much lack of accountability. You saw so much lack of leadership. There was so much lacking. When we were in primary school, we used to primary to high school, but I was still in lower grades, and we would ask each other, "Why do you come to school?" And I would prominently answer, "I come to school to go home." and that was the reality of it. Not much was learned, but
you didn't know why you had to do this.
Yeah, we do most of the things we do for no reason, and we end up costing ourselves, like we're coming to school to go home mentality. Now we need to simulate into adulthood, and we need to account to ourselves. Right now we're at a crossroads in our country where we can take this country and throw it away, and destroy it, and I'm not going to use Zimbabwe as an example because I don't have the facts of what really happened in Zimbabwe. Yes, but we are going to move from this economy that we have, which seems functional, to having nothing. Not because the government would have failed us, not because the white people would have done anything to Black people, but because we lacked accountability to ourselves. Because at the end of the day, if my daughter is to be somebody one day, I need to make sure that I am a somebody today who can provide for her, irregardless of my economic situation.
Yes.
If
you are accounting that I did bring this person to earth, so it is my responsibility that I make sure that they live a proper life. Exactly.
So it ties back to the point I made earlier when we started, that the family is where everything starts. When we as men account for our standing in society, for our economic activity, for the safety of our societies, for the safety of our elders, for the safety of our women, we are then going to see a massive shift in our mindset and in our economy. So if we as I'm going to speak to Black men, if we as Black men do not play and perfect our role in our own societies, we will not have a society. We are going to hound other white men, and we are going to seem inferior even though we are equals. If the men that were looting were accounting firstly to themselves, their families, and to the laws of their own country, they would have known when and how to do the right thing. Because you come up with an intelligent argument for one's sake for looting, and we qualify it. But all you had to do as a man when people were looting was not to go. That's the decision you just had to take, not to go looting.
Yes.
That's all you had to do.
That's the accountability.
Yes, that's the accountability in a nutshell. You just had not to say, you know what, I'm not going. That's it. I'm not saying you didn't need food or whatnot. You did, but can't you come up with more creative ways that are not criminal to get to that food? Opportunities are not open to all of us. I understand that and I get it. And not all of us are going to be entrepreneurs. I understand and I get it. But all of us, there is something that we think of that is non-criminal that we can do in order to provide for ourselves. And it is those ideas that we need to manifest that will allow us to better serve ourselves, our families, and to a greater extent, our country.
Yeah, man, I know you are, there's a lot in your head, but time is not on our side. If I can conclude, I once went to Hong Kong. It's dominant. Like I think I can count the black people I saw there in that country. It was me, my two friends, and those who are working there. I didn't count to 50, but I can tell you the safety in that place. Man, you can go anywhere at any time, and everybody has a phone. They're forever on their phone. So in South Africa, there are places where you'll have to hide your phone because you are scared. Hey, then my phone. And when you're talking about us black people having to drift away from the mentality of being employed, I've seen it. I've worked with students. There was one who came, they couldn't get their qualification, and I asked them that, Angale, you want your qualification. When you get it, is it guaranteeing you a job? Then the student said, no, but maybe if I have the qualification, I can be able to put in my CV. I'm like, but you do have a matric certificate. Put it in. Let's see if you will get a job before we can blame before we can find an excuse why we are not working. Put in the one that you have now. Let's see. The student was like, no, I want one. I'm like, okay, let's say you get it. And then you still don't get a job. What is your plan B? Which is something that I always talk to young people about. If you don't get a job, because no one has promised you a job, you coming to the university or going to a college, it's not promised that you're going to be employed. What is your plan B? I asked her, what are you good at? Because they can't come up with a business idea. I'm like, what are you good at? If you're good with hair, why don't you, around the neighborhood, women should know that, okay, we have Umpolukeng, who is a hairdresser, she can do house calls. You go and do that. Before you know it, you would have done much. You would have money and not be frustrated that you don't have a qualification. Asked you, what are you good at? Can you wash? Can you iron? There are people who go to work, they don't have time for these things. Do it. In one of my videos, I've mentioned these things that at some point you need to think beyond the qualification and a degree. Guys, we have talked so much with Mr. Fiken here. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sure he's gonna come back. He's a man of so many words, and he's got more content and well researched, and yeah, he gives himself time to really go into things and understand a lot of things. Thank you so much for coming, and I really, really appreciate it. Your last words to the viewers, Jay.
What I would say is that go out there, try your level best. Today may not work out, even tomorrow may not work out, and the next month may not look good, but eventually it is going to work out. And hold yourself accountable with whatever you do at all times.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I really, really appreciate it. Please comment. I want to hear your views. Even if you disagree with us, we want to hear your points, because we are not, what we are saying is not the alpha and omega of all the knowledge. So we do appreciate your feedback, anything that you have to say. Thank you from me and Mr. Fikeni. Bye-bye.